What if I told you that an unchecked ego doesn't just hold you back, it pushes people away and isolates you? The worst part? It convinces you that it's never your fault. Being with someone whose ego is as massive as the Manhattan Bridge? A nightmare. But what if that person is you? Ego isn't just about arrogance, it's about control. And in relationships, it can quietly destroy trust, love, and emotional connection. Here's how ego-driven behavior is wrecking relationships every single day, without people realizing it. The constant need to be right. Ever found yourself arguing, not to understand, but just to win? Always needing the final say doesn't just end conversations, it kills connection. What happens? Your partner feels unheard, undervalued, and over time, resentment takes over. When communication turns into a one-man show, ego makes conversations one-sided. Instead of listening, you're just waiting for your turn to talk. And when your partner feels like their words don't matter, they start withdrawing emotionally, struggling to apologize. An ego that can't say, "I was wrong," values pride over the relationship. The reality? An apology doesn't make you weak. It proves you care more about love than your own ego. Dismissing your partner's feelings. You're overreacting. That's not a big deal. Sound familiar? If your partner constantly feels invalidated, it's only a matter of time before they emotionally check out. Holding grudges like trophies. Ego loves keeping score, but in relationships, that's the fastest way to lose. Dragging past mistakes into every argument keeps relationships stuck in blame mode instead of growth mode. Taking every criticism as a personal attack. If feedback feels like an insult instead of an opportunity to grow, that's ego at work. Love thrives on mutual improvement. But if every "we need to talk" sounds like a threat, the relationship is already in trouble. I'm sure you and I both, at some point in our lives, have wondered why some people push away the very opportunities, friendships, or success they claim to want. Maybe you've even caught yourself doing it, turning down help, rejecting advice, or cutting ties too soon. Sound familiar? Well, you're not alone. Let's talk about how an inflated ego is often the invisible force behind self-sabotage. Self-sabotage is sometimes viewed as a defense mechanism of the ego, aiming to shield individuals from potential pain or failure. This protective instinct, however, can backfire, leading to behaviors that undermine personal success and relational harmony. Common ways an inflated ego manifests in self-sabotaging actions include avoiding vulnerability. An overinflated ego may prevent individuals from showing vulnerability, leading to superficial relationships and a lack of deep connection. Ever notice how some people laugh off heartbreak or failures like they don't care? That too cool to care attitude? It's often just ego shielding them from real emotional connection. The result? Superficial relationships and loneliness. Deflecting blame. To protect self-image, individuals might blame external factors or others for their failures, hindering personal growth and accountability. We all know someone who hops from job to job, always claiming their boss was an idiot or their coworkers were jealous. Funny how they never seem to be the problem, right? That's ego blocking self-awareness. Resisting feedback. An inflated ego can make accepting constructive criticism difficult, resulting in missed opportunities for improvement. I recently ordered a birthday cake for a friend from a local bakery. Not only did it not meet my expectations, but it was completely different from what they advertised. I didn't even leave a bad review. I just politely messaged them, saying I was disappointed with the quality. Do you know what they said? "You probably haven't had high-quality cake before and can't tell the difference. Our product is the best." Yeah, okay. Now, we have to talk about the absolute worst consequence of leaving an inflated ego unchecked. Humans are social animals. You've probably heard this 1,000 times, and for a good reason. It's true. We thrive on connection, relationships, and community. But what happens when your ego builds walls so high that no one can get through? When it isolates you, pushing away the very people who once mattered? Let's take a hard look at how a huge ego can leave you completely alone. It starts small. Maybe you dismiss criticism, brush off other people's feelings, or convince yourself that you don't need anyone. But before you know it, that ego-driven behavior creates distance between you and the world around you. You stop listening, you reject advice, you convince yourself that everyone else is the problem, and suddenly you're alone. Now let's clear something up. You don't have to be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder or NPD to have narcissistic tendencies. A lot of people hear the word narcissism and think of a full-blown textbook narcissist, the manipulative, grandiose, emotionally detached type. But here's the truth. Narcissism exists on a spectrum, and many people, without realizing it, exhibit mild narcissistic behaviors when their ego gets out of control. These behaviors include thinking you're always right, believing you're superior to others, struggling to empathize with people's emotions, feeling threatened by feedback or criticism, blaming others when things go wrong instead of taking accountability. We all have moments like this. The problem comes when these behaviors become patterns. And guess what? Narcissistic behaviors drive people away. Think about it. Would you want to be around someone who never listens to your perspective, shuts down your emotions because they think they know better, turns every conversation into something about them, sees relationships as power struggles instead of partnerships? Probably not, and that's exactly why ego-driven behavior leads to isolation. At first, people may try to reason with you, give you the benefit of the doubt, but eventually they get tired. They stop trying. They distance themselves, not out of hatred, but out of self-preservation. And before you know it, your social circle shrinks. Your relationships become superficial. People don't confide in you anymore. You feel misunderstood, but it's a mess you unknowingly created. Here's where it gets even worse. A person with an inflated ego might double down on their isolation. Instead of recognizing the problem, they tell themselves, I don't need anyone anyway. People just can't handle someone like me. I'll be better off alone. And just like that, they start living in an emotional castle with walls too high for anyone to climb. This is called the lonely king syndrome. You might feel powerful at first, independent, untouchable, but in reality, you're just alone. And loneliness isn't just a minor inconvenience. It has real consequences. Studies have linked chronic loneliness to increased stress and anxiety, higher risk of depression, reduced lifespan, even weakened immune function. That's right, your ego could literally be making you sick. Now that we've exposed how an inflated ego can wreck relationships, sabotage success, and leave you completely alone, the real question is, what can you do about it? Because let's be honest, what's the point of knowing the damage if you don't know how to fix it? This next part, it's the most important part of this video. Let's talk about the way out, a 3-step path to breaking free from ego's grip. By the way, if you're getting value from this and want more content that actually challenges you to think differently, hit that subscribe button. No fluff, no generic advice, just real talk that helps you grow. Alright, let's talk about the way out. Step 1. Self-awareness. Recognizing when ego is running the show. You can't change what you refuse to see. That's the harsh truth. If you don't acknowledge the problem, you can't fix it. Ego thrives in denial. The first step is catching yourself in the act. Ask yourself, do I get defensive when someone gives me feedback? Do I dismiss other people's feelings because I know better? Do I struggle to admit when I'm wrong? The moment you spot the pattern, you start breaking free from it. Ego makes you obsessed with being right. Humility makes you obsessed with getting better. Winning the argument isn't the goal, growing is. Instead of thinking, I know best, try, what can I learn here? The most successful people aren't the ones who shut out criticism, they're the ones who embrace it. Truly successful, humble people always surround themselves with people smarter than themselves. The ones at the top didn't just work harder, they listened, learned, and adapted. And the takeaway from this? Humility isn't a weakness. It's what separates people who grow from people who stay stuck. If ego has burned bridges in your life, it's not too late to rebuild them. Admit when you've let your ego take over. A simple "I was wrong" can go a long way. Show change through actions, not just words. Be genuinely open to feedback. People will trust you more if they know you're willing to listen and grow. At the end of the day, you have two choices. Let your ego control you, or take control of your ego. Ask yourself, would you rather be right, or would you rather grow? Would you rather protect your ego, or protect your relationships? The moment you start choosing growth over pride, you start winning in ways that actually matter. Next time you feel your ego creeping in, pause. Think. Ask yourself if it's helping you or hurting you. That one small moment of awareness, it just might change everything.